I want to talk to you about outreach at Willowdale Chapel, both local and global. What's our heart? What's our philosophy? What's the DNA in our outreach? And I want to give it to you in 7 points, and they all start with the letter H. The first one is hope. This is really the driving motivation of our outreach. It's our hope in God. You know, as Romans chapter 5 says, we hope in the glory of God. That one day we're going to see it. We're going to see God face to face, and we're going to behold His glory, and we are going to be glorified as a result. And it's that hope that really drives us to bring the gospel to the world. Because right now, God is not being glorified in anticipative hope by the world because they don't know Him yet. And therefore, they also don't have their own hope of the glory of God, that they'll be transformed and glorified and ennobled in God's presence one day. But we want the world to have it. You know, I like how John Piper puts it, missions exists because worship doesn't. And until God is glorified and people are hoping in the glory of God en masse, our job here on earth is not finished. Second H is holism. We believe in the holism of the gospel, and we want to be partnered with people who believe in it too. You know, Jesus never just preached a message to save souls. He brought the good news, but He also always brought it alongside good works. The blind saw, the deaf could hear, the lame could walk, lepers were cleansed, the dead were raised. It was all part of the holistic good news that Jesus came to proclaim and to demonstrate. And so we work with partners, whether locally here or around the world, who, yes, they meet physical and social needs, but they don't forget the message of the gospel that saves the soul. We work with evangelism and church planners who proclaim the message, but don't forget that people have real physical needs, and the gospel addresses those as well. So holism is a key component of our outreach. A third H is hard places. You know, we believe that the gospel is most readily accepted by people when they're at rock bottom, when they hit a desperate point in their lives. And so the gospel naturally drives us to the hard places, the predicaments where there's hopelessness reigning because the hope of the gospel is not there yet. And whether that means it takes us to forgotten peoples in our own community, immigrants, young unwed moms, at-risk youth that sometimes don't thrive in a highly competitive academic environment, we want to go to those hard places. Around the world, we're in Burundi. We've been in the Democratic Republic of Congo, some of the hardest places in the world in which to live. We're partnered with Bombay Teen Challenge in the red light district of Mumbai, or in Madhya Pradesh, where tribal peoples traffic their children just to survive. We're in Muslim majority parts of the world where we're doing evangelism and church planting. All the places that are in most desperate need of the gospel, that's where we want to be. The fourth component of our outreach DNA, and this one's right at the center of the list that needs to be at the center of our hearts, is humility. You know, as well-resourced Americans, most of us, it is very easy for us to go into a cross-cultural ministry situation with a kind of triumphalist attitude. We're here with our education, with our money, with our know-how, and we're going to get things done. And that is an attitude that is just antithetical to the gospel. The truth of the matter is, we're all humble sinners, continually in need of God's grace. And it's only by God's grace that anything good happens in our lives or in yours. And so we just want to approach every situation with deep humility. I mean, we never get past the first beatitude, blessed are the poor in spirit, or blessed are the meek, or blessed are those who mourn for their sins. We want to go in as humble learners. Hey, we don't deserve the grace of being children of God, letting alone the grace of being His co-workers. So let's go into this thing with a humility of spirit that says we're called alongside you to help, if God gives us the grace. Now, how can we serve you better? Especially as we deal with maybe people who are less financially resourced than us, we need to have a deep humility. I love what the author of a great book called When Helping Hurts, this is what he says. Until we embrace our mutual brokenness, our work with low-income people is likely to do more harm than good. He says, I sometimes unintentionally reduce poor people to objects that I use to fulfill my own need to accomplish something. But the truth of the matter is, I'm not okay, and you're not okay. Only Jesus can make us okay. Here's the fifth attribute, human connection. The gospel flourishes and flows on a network of relationships, and we want to make a deep human connection with our partners and with the people that our partners serve. We don't want to have anything to do with sort of an old mentality that said, pray, pay, and get out of the way. That's how you do missions work. You pray, you give your money, and then you let the experts do it. Hey, there's a truth in each of those things, but it's such a truncated view of what cross-cultural ministry is about. It's about partnership, fellowship. It's about human connection. We want to know people, and we want to be known by them. One of the real practical ways we make this happen is we just have a principle of a connection every 30 days. We want to make 30-day connections. And, that might seem like it would be easy to do in our own local community because, hey, we all live here. But it is easy to let 30 days pass by and we never touch base with a partner. So we want to just be very intentional about that, let alone globally where we don't have the opportunity to run into people on the streets or in the grocery store. We've got to schedule those Skype calls and make sure that every 30 days we're just checking in, just to say hello, just to say, how are you doing? This is not about looking over people's shoulders or making sure they're spending our money well. This is about knowing you. It's about, how are you doing? How can I pray for you this month? What's the good, the bad, and the ugly going on in your situation right now? And likewise, we share it from our perspective because we value our partners' prayers. We want to know and be known. We want to make real human connections. Number 6, we want to give people a hand up, not a handout. And that's a great little line we learned from our friends at Hope International as they do micro enterprise development among the poorest of the poor. It is so easy for money to complicate a relationship and to actually do more harm than good. A hand up says that we're not giving people charity, which ultimately is demeaning. We want to give them an investment that is ultimately life-enhancing, that extends their sense of dominion in the world. We love what Hope International says, that they invest in the dreams of the poor. They deserve our investment. They deserve opportunities the same as we are blessed to have where we live. And so we want to make sure that we're doing all the work that we do in such a way that it enhances the dignity of the people we serve. It gives them a hand up, doesn't demean them with a handout. And then lastly, high standards. And this is mostly about ourselves. We have high standards for our partners. We want people who are professional, who know what they're doing, who have discernible gifts and can make a real impact. We hold them to standards, but we want to hold ourselves to the highest standards. We want to be really sharp in our cross-cultural ministry. And this means being continual learners because there's always refined thinking. There are always new and best practices that will really bring about the most abundant fruitfulness in the work that we do. So why wouldn't we want to hold ourselves to high standards? And of course, as we do this with that kind of humble learning attitude, we can only expect that as Jesus promised, the good seed falls on good soil and it produces 30, 60, 100 times what was invested in it. We want to present to God the most abundant fruit for our work that we can offer Him. And we're going to do that by holding ourselves to best thinking and best practices always. So join us in this journey. We hope you'll find your part in God's mission in the world, whether locally or on the other side of the planet. Let's fulfill the Great Commission together.